Well, my dear truth seekers, after a 2-week lull, the Kiev regime, led by Vladimir Zelensky, once again decided to fire American ballistic missiles deep into Russian territory. Of course, we all understand perfectly well that this missile attack was carried out exclusively in coordination with representatives of the North Atlantic Alliance, and that it was the currently serving senior NATO officers who carried out the necessary preparations and launches of these American ballistic missiles. A few hours ago, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation officially announced that on December 11, the enemy launched a missile attack on a military airfield in the city of Taganrog, Rostov region. The Russian military department noted that this attack was carried out with the help of 6 American ATACMS ballistic missiles. The Russian military noted that the anti-aircraft missile and gun complex Pantsir S-1 shot down 2 enemy missiles. The remaining 4 missiles were suppressed using electronic warfare systems, and as a result, these missiles went off course and fell into a desert area. At the same time, the Russian military admitted that several soldiers were injured due to fragments of downed missiles. In addition, the debris of downed missiles also damaged 2 buildings and several military trucks parked near the airfield. In the end, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation also officially stated that this attack by Western long-range missiles would not go unanswered, and that appropriate measures would be taken shortly. My dear truth seekers, let me remind you that the Ukrainian army and NATO forces first fired Western long-range missiles deep into Russian territory on November 19, 2024. Back then, military facilities in the Bryansk region were attacked. Back then, Russia's enemies also used 6 American ATACMS ballistic missiles, 5 of which were shot down as soon as they crossed the border of the Bryansk region. 2 days after that, Russia launched a demonstration missile attack on a weapons factory in the city of Dnipro, using its latest hypersonic ballistic missile ORESHNIK. The consequences of this missile attack turned out to be so impressive that the Kiev regime and its masters in the West decided to temporarily stop missile strikes on Russian territory in order to recover from the shock they experienced. However, as time has shown, this pause did not last long. 20 days later, the Ukrainian army and NATO forces again fired Western long-range missiles deep into Russian territory. And judging by the information coming from Moscow, this decision to attack Russian territory may turn out to be the last, and even fatal for the Kiev regime and its masters in the West. The fact is that just a few minutes ago, insiders in Moscow said that Vladimir Putin perceived the missile strike on Taganrog by Western long-range missiles as a deliberate attempt by Western warmongers to disrupt peace initiatives that are currently under consideration. It is reported that Russian President Vladimir Putin regarded this missile attack as a provocation on the part of the Biden administration and a loss of hope for further constructive dialogue. Sources in the Kremlin confirmed that Vladimir Putin did not hide his dismay, and expressed the opinion that the current US administration and its puppets in Kiev are not interested in ending the conflict, and are doing everything to start a global war. At the same time, Vladimir Putin noted that the attack on Taganrog should not go unanswered. Against this backdrop, on December 12, at 6 p.m. Moscow time, numerous insiders in the Kremlin confirmed that Vladimir Putin gave the command to attack decision-making centers in Kiev and NATO facilities throughout Ukraine. At the same time, it is reported that during the future attack, the Russians will use not only the world's most powerful hypersonic ballistic missile ORESHNIK, but also other types of the latest Russian missiles. The fact that Russia will launch a missile attack on enemy targets in the coming hours was also confirmed in the United States. In particular, insiders at the Pentagon said that Moscow has already notified Washington that in the next 48 hours, Russia will strike at enemy military installations using the latest hypersonic ballistic missile ORESHNIK. At the same time, unnamed Pentagon sources expressed confidence that most likely this missile will be equipped with a fairly powerful warhead. Moreover, starting from December 12, Russia began actively jamming the operation of the Starlink system throughout Ukraine. This is done in order to disrupt communication between units of the Ukrainian army and NATO forces. Well, my dear truth seekers, as you can see, Russia is indeed preparing to deliver a crushing blow to NATO facilities and decision-making centers in Ukraine. However, as I said earlier, Vladimir Putin needs to be more decisive in the current situation and strike one of the military bases of NATO and the United States in Europe, with the help of the latest hypersonic ballistic missile ORESHNIK. Only after that, Putin will make the West fear Moscow. As a result, NATO will stop provoking Russia. You must finally understand that even a preemptive nuclear strike on Kiev will not scare the NATO countries, since the West does not care about Ukraine and its people. If Vladimir Putin really wants the West to stop crossing the red lines announced by Moscow, then he will have to act more harshly against the United States, Britain, and France. I assure you that if the so-called leaders of these Western countries see the latest Russian missiles over their heads, then peace will come to Ukraine in the next 24 hours. Otherwise, the West will continue to provoke Russia and arm the puppet regime in Kiev. By the way, many military experts have noticed that recently, the missiles allegedly produced by Ukraine have begun to resemble samples of the Western military-industrial complex. For example, the allegedly Ukrainian missile Ruta, recently presented by Kiev, is very similar in appearance to the American cruise missile Tomahawk. Thus, this is another signal to Vladimir Putin, indicating that he should start acting more harshly and decisively against the West. Only in this case, Moscow will be able to achieve all of its goals in Ukraine, and eliminate all external and internal threats to Russia's national security.